If you're ready to take your destiny into your own hands, you've come to the right place. This is Ordaishi, the Bulletproof Entrepreneur, featuring interviews with the most exciting and amazing entrepreneur. Here's your host, Chi Odogu.
Hey guys, welcome to the show. I have a great guest on the line with me today. I'm talking to Jim Palmer. Now, Jim is the very definition of a bulletproof entrepreneur. Jim was broke, indebted, and battling with cancer, and he clawed his way back from hopelessness and helplessness to build a string of successful businesses. He's known as a newsletter guru. He's founded several companies in the writing space, some of which include, now help me out, Jim, in case I missed some of these, but they are the Custom Newsletter Inc., the No Hassle Newsletters, No Hassle Social Media, the Dream Business Mastermind and Coaching, Dream Business Academy, Newsletter Gurus, Concierge Print and Mail on Demand, and Success Advantage Publishing. Now, as you can see, that's quite a mouthful, but
yeah, right. That ought to do.
It's quite a mouthful, but that does not put the end on what Jim has done or has been able to do with his career. So he's here to tell us a little bit about himself, his background, and to teach us some things about business, entrepreneurship, growing your company, marketing, and any other wisdom nugget he wants to share. So Jim, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.
Yeah. So Jim, tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got on this track of just being the dream business coach, as you're popularly known as.
I honestly believe if you're going to coach people, you need to have a track record, and a proven track record. So I started coaching 7 years ago, which was probably 8 or 9 years into my into my business. So I started my first business in October 2001. My first year was revenue free, which is a polite way of saying it took me a year to get my first client. And But in 5 years, I'd grown a multiple six-figure business, and then I did it again multiple times. And then I started my coaching practice. I started authoring books, started speaking, started my doing live events, and all of that grew out. But I did have to go through a lot of crap and learning and stuff, stuff we'll call it, before you get to the position where you are now. Reminds me of an expression. When you see somebody successful, you're seeing the finished product. You're not seeing everything that goes into making that.
Yeah. That's cool. So tell us a little bit about, before you became an entrepreneur, you were working a high-flying corporate job. And then what was your life like, working?
Life was pretty good.
Family?
Yeah, my wife, we made a decision she would be a stay-at-home mom, so I was really supporting most of the expenses. She was doing some small jobs, but then in the summer of 2000, I was VP of marketing for this local company, and one day the owner said, "We're eliminating your position with our company." So, it's funny how people like to say things a certain way. I think that was his way of saying you're fired without saying you're fired, because I didn't do anything wrong. They just wanted to save money, I guess. But I honestly thought I would be back to work, because at that time, I had 4 teenagers at home, a lot of bills. And so I started looking for my next job. But, I was unemployed for 15 months. And
wow.
And 12 months into that, I was the first time I had cancer. So, I was really in a bad place, probably the lowest point in my life. And sometimes when you get to a really low place, the only place you can look is up. And that's when I decided to start my own business.
Wow. So 15 months unemployed, dealing with cancer. What kind of a toll did that take on your psychology and your mindset? Because you come out of...
It took a big one.
VP of marketing, How did you feel?
Yeah. Well, I didn't feel great. And, I think it's true for men and women, but I think more so with men that we associate who we are with titles and whatever we do for a living.
Yes.
And I was proud of the career I've had. I have done pretty well for myself. But then all of a sudden, I'm out of work, and you see the neighbors go down the street going to work, and I'm not going to work, and so no matter how much confidence or self-esteem you had, when you get to that point where you're just not finding work. And believe me, I was trying to do everything I could, but nothing was really working for me. And so that really takes a toll on your self-esteem for sure.
Yeah, I was just chipping away at you gradually. So you get diagnosed with cancer, and I'm sure it must have been a very difficult time for you and your family. And in the course of going through the treatments, dealing with unemployment, where did the spark come from to think about launching a business?
Well, it was God inspired for sure. I mean, I was at a pretty low place in my life, and then right around, I did have almost a sure thing as far as a job. But then when September 11th happened in this country, the economy really kind of sputtered, and any business that was thinking of expanding put those plans on hold, and that's what happened to me then. And that's when that was really the lowest point in my life, and I actually prayed for guidance and wisdom. I didn't know what to do, and I believe I was told to start a business and become an entrepreneur.
Okay. So what was that first business?
First business was called Dynamic Communication. I was writing and designing newsletters for local companies. And, I wrote my first newsletter when I was 21. I ended up doing a newsletter at every company that and job that I had after that. And when I decided to start my business, I thought, well, I'm pretty good at doing newsletters, and most companies can use a newsletter. So I thought there's a big available pool of prospective customers. So that's what I did. I started my business selling newsletters.
Yeah. And then for 1 year, no clients. And then, but in your book, you mentioned that, in that 1 year, you were still doing everything you needed to do to get the business growing. You were still going to networking events, sometimes twice a day. You were meeting people, telling people about you were sowing the seeds like a farmer, preparing for the harvest down the road without actually knowing what you were doing. Because at many points during that stage, you could have just as easily given up and kept the hustle to find a new job, or just settle for stocking shelves at Target, which you had to do to pay the bills.
Yeah, so with 4 teenagers at home, one of our bills was food, and I do believe, just because I was the founder and president of my own corporation, it said so on my fancy business card, if you don't have any revenue, you really don't have a business. So I needed to bring in some money to, help with our finances at home. So I got a job at Target, which is right down the road, and I worked the shift. I got up at 4, and I think the shift started at 5. Mm-hmm. And so we worked for, 4 hours or so before the store opened, stocking shelves. And then I think I left around 11 a.m. and that's when I would, go back to starting to build my business. And I remember going to several networking events at night and then getting in bed and starting all over again. And even though I'd made a good salary when my last position, I was working, for Target wages, but I think I was bringing home like $300, a week or something. And but that goes a long way to buying some cereal and some food.
Yeah. Yeah. So that must have really been humbling, because you don't go from a corporate job to Target, and then it's like dealing with the pressure of trying to keep up with your peers, because you still see some of your peers doing well in the old job and whatnot, and then the psychology of having to stoop so low to build something.
Yeah, but what's interesting about that, and this is the honest truth, is that I was already, if I went from the job I had to 2 weeks later working at Target, I would have been a wreck, but I'd already been unemployed, for probably a year and a half at that point.
Okay.
So my confidence and my ego were not what they were at their healthiest point, right?
Yeah.
And honestly, I do also believe, as men and people, but just speaking for men are supposed to work, and that's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to support your family. Mm-hmm. I also believe God rewards hard work. Yeah. So just because I was a business owner, I can't just sit there waiting for the phone to ring. So that's why I was riding on 2 tracks. I had to bring in some money and do what I needed to do while my business to grow. And there was a point where I needed, I got a client, another client, but then I was asking to reduce my hours. Then Target eventually said, we can't reduce your hours anymore. You either want to work here or you don't. And I said, well, that's an easy decision. Although it wasn't an easy decision cash flow wise, because my business wasn't making enough for me to actually quit. I would have rather still work, maybe 20 hours a week. But there was a point when you have to jump. And I tell you, when you are hungry, scared, and or tired, that's a good motivator. So that made me work even harder to bring in more business.
Okay, so that deciding point where you had to jump. Now, I wanted to find out something. Your book is titled Decide, and you've written about 6-7 books right now.
Yes.
So how do you know that time to decide, Because it's different for everyone. Well, you figured it out kind of in between A, hustling to put food on the table, and B, making sure that your business launches so that you don't.
One of the things I've been blessed with, I'll call it a good gut instinct. Some people may call it intuition. Some people call it spirit. Whatever it is, when you see an opportunity, or maybe are posed with a question or something like that, I think most people instinctively know pretty quick what the right thing to do is. But then we go into this paralysis analysis where we're going to weigh the pros and cons, write everything down, think about it, put it on the back burner. I'm going to run it by a bunch of people. Life takes over. 60 days later, you still haven't made a decision. And the one thing I know is that growing businesses thrive on momentum, and indecision is the opposite of momentum. Indecision is a momentum killer, right?
Yep.
So if you look at and study as many successful people as I have, one of the things that they have in common is they have an ability to quickly make a decision, either yes or no. And by the way, either one is okay, but I'll think about it is not okay. And listen, what do we have for lunch today? That's pretty easy. Are we going to invest in a new 10,000 square foot factory? Well, I'm not saying you make that decision on the spur of the moment, but you don't need a year to make that decision. Yeah. There's a balance depending on the level of risk.
Yeah. So what role did things like books, messages, because I read you read Think and Grow Rich, which I believe has made more millionaires than any other book apart from the Bible, and Psycho Cybernetics. What role did those books play as you were starting to get things up?
They were instrumental because one of the greatest ways to go out there and build your business is to be a speaker. Go out there and speak and teach, because when you start a business, you're going one-to-one. Means you meet somebody networking, you knock on a door literally or whatever it is. You're generally meeting people one-to-one. When you're speaking, you're meeting one-to-many. Whether there's 20 people in a room or 500 people in a room, you're able to present yourself to those people. So becoming a speaker is good. The only thing better than becoming a speaker is becoming a published author who is a speaker. Okay. That is like the ultimate incredibility. If you go to hear somebody speak and on almost any topic, but it's obviously something you're interested in because you're going there. But if you go to hear somebody speak and when they're introduced, it says, they're the author of, the best-selling book or the hit book. It doesn't matter if it's best-selling. But and I mean, that to me, there are people that say, I've got a book in me. I've started a book. I'm going to finish and then there's people that actually write books and get them done. Those are the people, by and large, who are growing faster. So when I figured out that becoming an author was key, especially to growing a coaching business, I really started. Because at that point I'd written 3 books, and when I started my coaching business, that's when I started writing even more.
Okay, so what was your main book, and what were the factors that caused you to write that book?
So when I my first business, as I mentioned, was newsletters. My second business, which was my first online business, was called No Hassle Newsletters. I mean, it still is today. But when I figured out that the whole power of celebrity positioning and branding.
Okay.
That's when I branded myself the newsletter guru. And I said, man, if I'm the newsletter guru, I better write a book on newsletter marketing. That's when I wrote The Magic of Newsletter Marketing. And the second book that I wrote was called Stick Like Glue, which was all about client retention. And then the third book I wrote was The Fastest Way to Higher Profits. So each of those books, if you think of a funnel, The Magic of Newsletter Marketing is at the bottom. That's the most narrow point. So it's very niched and focused. And then as you start moving up, like up the V, Stick Like Glue gets wider. That's the wider topic of customer retention, of which newsletters play a part of. And then the third book is The Fastest Way to Higher Profits. So that's really more, boy, Jim's not just a newsletter guy. He's a smart businessman.
Okay, cool. So customer retention and attrition. Now, the role of newsletters in that, because every business needs revenues, and revenues come from being able to sell products and services to your customers. What were you saying in those newsletters that kept customers coming back over and over again? And then how did you now translate that as a powerful message for people to read and take action on in a book?
So the first thing to understand about newsletters is it's not a sales per se piece. So you don't, hey, welcome to our newsletter. By the way, let me tell you about our special of the month. I mean,
because that's not what that's the idea everybody has these days of a newsletter.
Right.
Yeah.
Somebody says, well, if I'm going to spend 50 cents or $1 a piece on customers, I'm going to sell them something. Well, if you do it the right way, my way, you will sell them. But you have to realize that a newsletter is a customer relationship tool.
Okay.
And people that want to have higher profits in their business, they have to understand that higher profits come from stronger relationships with your customers. Because we know that customers who stay connected with your business longer, they end up spending more, and they also end up referring more. And that's how your business is going to grow. So the first thing to understand is the content that goes in your newsletter needs to be fun, informative, interesting, and entertaining from your customer's perspective.
Okay. And Stick Like Glue, what was that about? What was the big idea in that book?
That was really all about client retention. Okay. And, I give several different strategies on all about everything from when the sale's made to how to stay in touch with your clients proactively and not simply when sales go down, you say, ooh, we better get in touch with our customers and tell them we like them. Maybe they'll come buy more. No, it's a proactive, ongoing strategy.
Okay.
My belief is that if businesses would spend even half of what they spend on customer acquisition, if they would take half that budget and spend it on customer retention strategies, they would actually make more money, because it absolutely costs more and takes longer to get a new customer than it does to retain and sell more to customers you already have.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because that enhances the lifetime value of what the customer is going to spend, which overall increases your profitability and sales. And also, when I was working as a consultant, we used to do what they call intangible assets analysis. One of the biggest intangible assets each company has was their customer relationships. And those have a value in your business, whether you like it or not. And that's a big thing that I think a lot of businesses neglect. So I'm glad you're able
Yeah.
Okay, go on. Sorry.
Yeah, you know what? When a typical business gets a new customer, they can, whether it's a single person and they just celebrate in their own head, or in a business, maybe the customer leaves. If you got a store and you go ring the bell in the back, yay, we just got a new customer. Most people at that point, they go and try and find another one. And then another one, and another one, as if a new customer is the fastest way to higher profits. In fact, if you get that customer, you put them into a sequence and some sort of a relationship building funnel, you're going to end up selling more to that customer.
Yeah. Cool. And your third book, you said it's called Faster Way to Profits. Now, I know this is basically about...
The fastest way to...
I beg your pardon?
Yeah. It's the fastest way to higher profits.
Fastest way to higher profits.
And each chapter is a separate lesson in how to grow more profitable business. It's not like a book which goes from beginning to end. Each chapter is a separate strategy.
Yeah. Now, in the book I just read that you wrote, Decide, the chapter on investing in yourself was also kind of like co-branded as a faster way to higher profits, which was basically investing in mentors and guides and coaches, people that can help you grow your business and help you navigate as you're doing what you need to do to get on by. I want to tell the story about how your daughter, Jessica Rhodes of Interview Connections and the podcasting fame, she wanted to join your mastermind. Well, first of all, she wanted to start her business, and then what happened? What happened there?
So she came home. They live in Rhode Island. We live in Pennsylvania currently, and they came home for Thanksgiving when she was pregnant with her first child, my grandson Nathan, and said, I'd really like to be a stay-at-home mom, but we can't live on Jamie's salary alone. I said, I'll help you start a business. I'll teach you how to be a VA and blah, blah. So we went down that road, and about 6 months later is when we got the idea to start Interview Connections based on work she was already doing for me, doing interview connections and stuff. And so that's when she launched that business. And then 6 months after that, she said, boy, I'd like to join your mastermind. I mean, obviously, I know the power of mastermind. I said, good, get out your credit card and I'll accept you, And I figured, I have a little bit of fun saying she was shocked. She was only a little bit shocked because I had talked to her. I said, listen, you're going to have more access to me than anybody. You're the only one that has my cell phone number, and we can talk all the time. But if you're going to be part of the group, I mean, to be in integrity, you need to be a paid member of the group. So, yeah, I insisted she join the group like everybody else.
Yeah, but that's very powerful, though, because in as much as she's your daughter and you love her, a lot of people unconsciously take for granted the kind of wisdom and the kind of knowledge you get from like a free resource, that just because it's free, it's not necessarily valued. So I think you having to make her pay to participate and to build that integrity in the process of more of putting that discipline so that she'd like sit up and take notice.
It was a good lesson. And that wasn't the first time. Actually, when I lost my job in 2000, my girls, I have twin girls, Jessica's a twin sister, they were 13, and I had a 15 and a 17-year-old son. So instantly gone were the days when dad opens his wallet on a Friday night for movie money or go to the mall money. Oh. They knew instantly that if they wanted to have anything in their life that was fun, something other than food and school supplies, that they were going to have to get a job and earn it. Mm-hmm. So, there's always lessons to be learned from going through really crappy situations. And that's one of the benefits, I think, my kids, first of all, they got to see me get through it and start a business, but they also really learned that if I want to have something, whether it's CDs or a guitar or whatever it is, they were going to have to earn the money themselves.
Yeah. Nice. Okay, so we'll transition back a little bit and go into this main book, Decide. And now this book is purely almost 100% a mindset book, although you don't want it to be called a mindset book. I took it as a mindset book because there were so many things that are like, it's all about starting with your inner self and, taking a firm decision of a direction you want to go to and proceeding from there.
Right. It is definitely a mindset book, but I only hesitate from marketing perspective because so many mindset books, they have a picture of like the human brain on the cover and people think, well, I'm just going to sit under a tree, extend my arms and go and money's going to come raining down. No. That's not me, man. I am all about building real businesses.
Yeah, so that's the marriage of, well, the first thing I want to talk about there is dealing with, what you called head trash, which is basically things like the imposter syndrome, feeling like you're not good enough, or basically feeling as if, there's this level of, what I call it, social awareness that has driven into you that, oh, you must follow predefined social norms, and if you don't, you're kind of like bucking the trend, as it were?
Yeah. Yeah. Head trash is something that everybody has. No matter what level of success you achieve, there's always a little voice in your head, either urging you on or telling you to start being a little more cautious, or whatever that looks like. It's different for different people. But, people sometimes grow up. Here's one example I give is it's called top of the stairs thinking. So in a lot of homes, kids would sit at the top of after the parents say go to bed, they sit at the top of the stairs and they listen to their parents down in the kitchen talk about how tight money is and we got no money and don't be buying this or that or the other thing. So they grow up with this mentality that money is very limited and there's not a lot to spend or invest. So that's something that if you're going to have any success at all in your business, you need to fix that, right? So that's one of the things I talk about. Another kind of head trash is the need to be perfect. You're not willing to launch anything until you believe something is absolutely perfect.
And isn't that what a lot of entrepreneurs actually feel like that? Oh, unless this thing is 100% perfect, that it's going to suck at people. But nothing ever in life starts out perfect.
No, that's true. And the other thing is, so I'll give you an actionable step if any of your listeners are suffering from perfectionism. You make a decision that you want to choose to be judged on the value of the information and the content and the value that you're providing, and not the imperfect way in which you provide it. So what do I mean by that? If you write a book like any of my books, which have all sold very well, but I guarantee, an English major can go through them and find errors in them, not because I'm happy about it, because I just missed them and I'd rather get the book out than spend a year trying to find a missing comma. And so people, and I'll tell you exactly how I learned this, Chi. When I wrote my first book, it took me 18 months. My last 3 books I did in 60 days. And the truth of the matter is it took me a year to write my first one because I wanted that thing to be perfect. And then it took me 6 months to get the courage to actually put it out there. And what happened was, even though I took 6 months to proof that thing so many different times, somebody wrote me about a month or 2 after the book launched and said, hey, I just thought you'd like to know, there's a spelling or grammar mistake on page 139 or something. And, when I first read the email, I'm like, holy crap. Oh, the whole world's going to think I'm a boob, right? And I got a little panicked, and I said, so I hit reply and I said, hey, thanks for letting me know. I'll bring this up with my editors. I think I was the editor at that point. I'll bring it up with my editors and we'll fix it on the next printing. And then the something is the little voice in my head said, add a sentence. And the sentence was this: by the way, how did you like the book? And then I sent it. And he came back and said, Jim, love the book. I know now how to do a newsletter, what kind of content goes in, how to mail it and fold it and print it and all blah, blah. It was a very, very valuable lesson. Thank you for putting it out. I'm paraphrasing, but something like that.
Yeah.
And I thought to myself, so love the book, got tons and tons of value, but he still felt compelled to tell me about the mistake, which is okay. But that's proof that people are going to judge me for the value. If I'm helping them build their business, I just come right out and say, look, man, I'm an imperfect person in every way, shape, or form, but at least I'm doing something.
Yeah, that's true. That's crazy. And it's a good story, as opposed to somebody who said, oh, you have a comma here. What did you think about it? I didn't read it because I saw the comma was missing or something. And come on, that doesn't really help anyone. That's
right. And by the way, there are people that will do that, and they're not your customers, so don't worry about it.
Yeah, and the internet is actually full of people like that. Whether you're doing a podcast, you're writing a book, making a blog, there's always some critic out there who may be going through something in their own life, and they just feel like, they want to pass their negativity along to the rest of the world.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, and I think my favorite chapter in this book was the chapter where you talked about deciding to survive, because That's really spoke to me as I'm trying to build my own business, and I could resonate and feel what you were living through when you were trying to build your business and you were going through tough times, because right now a lot of people across the globe are facing really tough challenges. Automation is taking away jobs, or jobs are moving overseas, or there's recession and depression everywhere you look. And then people look around, they come out of school, college, grad school, they can't find jobs. And it just feels like, when you try to do something, the world is just kicking you in the teeth and telling you to stay down. So that really resonated a lot with me. Could you speak a little bit more about why you put that chapter in the book and what you were trying to teach people?
There will be no shortage of obstacles, challenges, and trees coming across the road trying to prevent you from moving forward. Almost at every turn, sometimes you're going to find reasons that you might want to quit. Several people who achieve high levels of success have said, if I knew how hard it would be when I started, I probably wouldn't have started. And so the first decision you have to make as an entrepreneur is decide to survive, no matter what it takes. I'm going to get through this. And one of the things that helped me realize that was the word ridiculous. And so if you can imagine my first year being revenue free, imagine month 1. Well, okay, month 2, maybe it'll get better. Month 3, man, it's really going to turn around now. Month 4, month 5, month 6. And I'm like, well, gosh. But one of the things I kept telling myself is, how ridiculous would it be if I was to quit now after just investing 5 months or 8 months or 9 months of my life building this thing? I just imagine the very next day I'm going to get a phone call, or a customer is going to come in. Something's going to happen, and how utterly ridiculous it would be if I quit now. So, but that's a conscious decision, because I got to tell you, and I'm that first year, while I talk about it now and doesn't make me cry or anything, but that was one tough year. But I knew for a fact that I was meant to be a business owner. I knew that I'd be successful. I just didn't know when, and I was not about to quit. So I made a decision that no matter what, I am going to survive.
That's awesome. And led into the next point, which was something I kind of read out of the Bible, because you were talking about how skill, talent, and work ethic are just not enough for success. And that a lot of people have that, and they try their best, and they put in the work, they put in the many hours, but they still don't get the success that they're looking for. And that there's one X factor that you need to actually build and help you succeed. So what's that X factor? Because my quote that I got from that was basically, the race is not to the swift, the battle is not to the strong. And time and chance happens to all of them, but for you, it was kind of a different take on that.
Yep. A lot of people will, especially like motivational speakers, I've heard so many people say, well, if you take your work ethic, your drive, your ambition, your moral compass, your attitude, and your mindset, and you mix it all together, that combination will determine how much success you're going to have. And I say that's mostly wrong. So what I say is, your work ethic, your drive, your ambition, your moral compass, your attitude, those are the things that make up the machine that is your business. Your mindset is the fuel that drives that machine. So you could have unbelievable talent, you could have skill, you could be the best at what you do. I mean, you could be the dentist that gets the teeth the whitest, the fastest. You could be a landscaper that cuts grass better than anybody else. You could be a lawyer that tries cases more successfully. You could do all of that. But if your mindset is telling you, no, don't do that. Let's not grow here. Let's not do there. Let's not invest here. If your mindset is not finely tuned to achieve ultimate levels of success, then you won't do it. Your mindset is what dictates how much success you're going to have.
Okay, and what was the role of mentorship and coaching, and how did that play into you building a successful business and becoming a great entrepreneur? Because we spoke earlier about your coach, Melanie Benson Strick.
Yeah.
So what's
it played an ultimate role.
What's the value of that? Because A lot of people always think you can try and go on it yourself, but usually,
I don't know where. Let me ask you this. I don't know how it is where you live, but around here, if somebody said, "Hey, let's meet at XYZ restaurant," and I don't know where it is, I get out my phone and I ask Siri, I need directions. Where do you want to go? And I say XYZ restaurant, and it says, "Okay, start on this course," and it tells you where to go.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, could you do it on your own? Sure, you could, but the fastest way to get to somewhere where you haven't been yet is to ask somebody who's already been there. If you want to grow a very successful business, you could absolutely figure it out yourself, grind it out, make some mistakes, lose some money, whatever it takes, call them lessons. But in the end, if you want to grow a business faster to higher levels of success, then you want to be mentored by somebody who's already done what it is you want to do. And so that's an investment. That's not an expense. It's an investment that you're going to make in your business to be working with a coach who has created the type of business you want to create.
And if someone says they can't afford to pay a coach, for example, because that's one of the biggest excuses, what would
it is an excuse.
What would be your rebuttal to that?
Nobody can afford it. If you could afford it, here's a brutal truth. If you can't, and I've said this from the stage, if you can't afford my coaching, then what you're doing now is not working. Think about that.
So basically, you just need to scrap that and do something different.
When I joined my first mentoring group, it was $400 a month, and that was $400 a month I didn't have. But I had a rock hard belief that I knew being part of a mastermind group was going to help me. I knew I had strong work ethic and drive. I was smart and things like that. But I had to understand, I don't know everything. I don't know the fastest way to do this, that, and the other thing. But there were people in that group that could help me. So the deal I made with myself was, I'm gonna set my ego aside, and if I hear a good idea, I'm not gonna say, that'll never work for me. If somebody already did it and proved it, I'm gonna say that's more than good enough for me, and I'm gonna do that in my business. And within 4 months, my business had increased enough revenue to more than cover the $400 investment. But I had to make a decision. I'm going to invest $400 a month that I don't have, which meant putting on a credit card, honestly, and then that's going to help me grow faster. So most people that work with coaches, they're putting money into it that they don't have, but they know that it will pay off.
Now, what were some of the mistakes you made growing your business, or as you were building your business in the early days?
I didn't make any mistakes.
Come on.
Yeah. Honestly, if I had worked with a coach, if I had joined a mastermind group sooner, if I had worked with Melanie as my mindset coach sooner, I would have arrived sooner to where I wanted to be. So a lot of people just, some people are stubborn, myself including, say, well, I'm smart enough to start this business. I ought to be smart enough to grow it. So let me just do it. But you get to a point where, it's just taken a little too long. I have this expression: if slow to no growth is no longer an acceptable option in your business, then come work with me. And so that's very true, right? If you just keep doing and doing and doing and doing and doing, and it's not working for you the way you want it to work, then for heaven's sakes, you do have options. You can invest in yourself.
But there's the conundrum of like finding an authentic coach, because in this coaching industry, in this thought leadership industry, anybody can just pretty much hang out their shingle and call themselves a business coach or something. And people kind of get jaded and scared, thinking that if they pick somebody or they try and work with that person, and that person really doesn't know what they're doing, that person might just be taking their money and just eating it, and they end up on the short end of the stick.
Yes. And what I would say to that is, with the power of the internet, there's no excuse for not doing your homework. you can very easily figure out. You can easily figure out who is successful and who's not, right? So anybody, you can go to my websites and you can see the names of my businesses. You can go to all of their websites and you can figure out that they're real, right? I mean, yeah, the one thing I think makes me laugh sometimes is having somebody who's maybe 19 years old and said, I'm a life coach. Well, how much life have you actually lived at 19 years old, right? So, yeah, you definitely want to hire somebody that's got a proven background.
Okay, great. So let's transition towards the winding down questions, because we've really talked a lot about you and your business. Now, concerning entrepreneurship, who's an entrepreneur you admire, and why do you admire that person so much?
Dan Kennedy is the one entrepreneur that I have the highest regard for. He's a self-made man, has built multiple businesses, has done extremely well. He totally understands what it's like to create a business. And Dan Kennedy is it for me.
What are some of the impactful products that you've consumed of Dan Kennedy's that really stood out in your mind and helped you?
Dan Kennedy, here's one thing Dan said, and he said, he has ultimately said so much, but one of the things that he said is, you will earn significantly more income for who you are than what you do. And what that means is, it's not about what you do. It's not the deliverable. It's about who you are, which means if you create good branding and celebrity positioning for yourself, you're going to have people beating a path to your door.
Okay, cool. And as a leader, what do you recommend to everyone else to do over and over? Oh, let's put it this way. What do you do over and over again that you would recommend other people to do that really helped you succeed and grow your business or your businesses?
Understand what your time's worth and respect your time. Because if you don't respect your time and the value of your time, nobody else is going to do it.
So that means being difficult, always watching the clock, or?
That means being productive when you need to be productive. I have no incoming or outgoing calls unless they're pre-scheduled.
Okay.
So I don't just sit here waiting for the phone to ring. All of my calls, all my interviews, my coaching clients are pre-scheduled.
Okay.
And nobody just gets to me to waste my time. It's hard to do that because you got to set yourself up some parameters.
Yeah.
But I know what my time's worth, and I'm not going to spend my time doing just piddly little things that aren't going to make me money.
Okay. And now, for those people that are kind of struggling in the early stages of their entrepreneurial career, they're kind of like where you were a couple years ago, been on this journey for quite some time and no money's coming in. What's one idea you want to share with people to kind of help them get some cash flow on something going until they're able to scale their business?
You got to figure out not what it is that you want to do and not what it is that you might have passion about. You want to figure out what is a product or service that's in high demand. You could either find your way to deliver the same thing, or maybe you put your own slight twist on it. But so many people come up with an idea for a business and they don't bother to do any research to see if it's actually something that's needed, right? So just do enough research before you pull the trigger.
Okay. And I think my last question would be, excuse me, what's the worst job you ever had and what did you learn from it?
I was a courier. This was when I was unemployed. I did a lot of small jobs before I took the Target job because I wanted to stay flexible. But I got up at very early in the morning and used my own. I worked for this courier company that this is going to be kind of gross. I'm almost regretting I brought this up. But there was a pharmaceutical company near my house that did research on heart disease. It turns out that a pig's heart is very similar in size and function to a human heart. So I would drive about 45 minutes to a plant where they make bacon. And I had a cooler, and I would pick up 3 or 4 freshly extracted hearts and deliver them within an hour so they could do their research and help cure heart disease.
Wow.
And that was not a fun place to visit.
No.
In fact, when they found out I was new, they make sure you go into what's called the kill room, and because you not many people can hold it in when you see what goes on in there.
Wow, that's awesome.
But you know what? That's just one of those stories now. That's 15 or 16 years ago now, but it's something I did. Again, I picked some job that wasn't going to interfere with my daytime work. So I just got up early and did the drive. I was back at home by 7 o'clock, I think. So, I think I was able to make some money, and the only thing I lost was some sleep time because it didn't take away from family time or business building time.
Nice. So what do you have going on these days, Jim?
Well, my new book is about to come out. It's called Just Say Yes, Create Your Dream Business and Live Your Dream Lifestyle.
Okay. So,
and my wife and I are, pardon me?
No, I said, so give us a breakdown. What's it about?
It's about saying yes to the opportunities that life presents itself. And I'm talking business and personal. Okay. My wife and I made a decision almost a year ago that we were going to go on a big adventure because we feel, we've raised 4 kids. We got 3 grandkids. We feel like we've lived life very predictably and safely. So we sold our house. We put our furniture in storage, and we bought a big boat. And literally, as you and I are doing this interview, in 2 days, we move on the boat, and we're going to be on it for at least 2 years. I'm going to be working on the boat, and we're going to be floating around, having a big adventure.
Nice. So where can people get the book, and where can they find you and learn more about you and what you do?
So the book's not out yet. It's coming out May 15th. Okay. But if people want to learn a little bit more about our big adventure, we actually started a blog because so many people are curious. How are you going to work on board and things like that? It's called ourfloatinghome.com, ourfloatinghome.com. Okay. So if you go there, you'll see a picture of our boat. And there's some. We're gonna journey. We're gonna chronicle our journey with videos, pictures, and we're just gonna take people as much as we can on the adventure.
Nice. Well, thanks for coming on the podcast, Jim. It's really been a pleasure getting to talk to you, learn more about you, your business, your book. I would say your books, and just all the general wisdom bombs you've dropped on the show thus far.
My pleasure.
All right.
Thanks for having me on, Chi.
Thank you, Jim. And that's it.
Don't let another minute go by without taking action to change your life. Visit Audacy.com right now for more incredible resources, and we'll see you next time on Audacy, the Bulletproof Entrepreneur.